Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Fahrbach. According to UNESCO and European Commission data on women in science, despite strong representation of women at early career stages, structural barriers, cultural expectations, and limited institutional support make career progression to senior academic positions difficult. Now, policies such as parental leave, mentoring, and diversity programs help address these issues, but gaps remain globally. Now, debates about military service, scientific careers, and family life all raise similar questions about how institutions adapt to changing roles for men and women. Now, our guest today is zoologist and science communicator Joanna Bagniewska, lecturer in environmental science at the University of Oxford. Thanks for coming by to the studio. Welcome.
Hello, thank you very much for having me.
So let's dive into, let's say, the data here. In terms of research, in terms of approaching academia, from your own experience, what are those major barriers? I mean, you've had a career in the UK, also in Europe, but what are the main barriers for you in your mind?
So I'm a scientist who works in the field, and this is probably most people, when they hear a scientist, they think of someone very clinical, very much in the lab. I am the sort of scientist who gets my hands dirty, and so that comes with its whole host of problems stemming from the fact that I'm female. So I work with animals, which means that I often have to carry with me heavy equipment. When I travel, I have to make different arrangements than my male colleagues would do. So safety issues in the field. Depending on where I go, it is possible to travel as a single female, or sometimes it is not possible. And if it's not possible, I have to be chaperoned by someone. Who will it be? Who will pay for that person? So this is kind of the structural, bigger picture issue that I would be facing. But even, you know, the kind of mundane aspects of this is, you know, might not be the most appetizing thing to talk about, but going to the toilet in the field, right? The logistics of it are different for males and females. If you work in a remote area, again, safety. Just the fact that when you carry equipment, a colleague of mine who's male, who's bigger, can carry more of it. And all of these things can be surpassed, but you need to plan for them. And I think institutionally, we're not quite prepared for that. But at the same time, if you think about it, safety should be a concern for everyone, not just females, because males and females do both face safety issues, but they're of different natures. So some of my colleagues who work in, say, remote Brazil, they have been, my male colleagues would have been held at gunpoint, for instance, or kidnapped, whereas female ones would risk sexual assault. So again, this is it's linking to the military a bit, but
I was going to say on that, if I may, because you're describing this is very much intense. You said you're facing these challenges, but
yes.
Can we make that connection? I mean, we're also talking about potential conscription very much here in Poland and Europe, maybe including women in that. So is there a connect there? I mean, women doing field work, also military?
Yeah, I think there's a big overlap, because yes, you are in the field, you're working in very basic conditions a lot of the time. You have to carry heavy stuff. Very often you need to know how to shoot, especially if you're working with dangerous animals. So when it comes to not necessarily full-on conscription, but being taught how the military operates and the basics of it, I am very much in favor of women having access to that knowledge, because I stem from the philosophy, it's better to know something, to have the ability to do something, rather than to not. And so if women are taught how to operate guns, how the military system works, that knowledge is power. And so it's better to be prepared and just have be empowered in that way, especially since war will affect women differently to men, and depriving them of that basic knowledge is setting them back one more step.
On that, if I may, just another sort of personal anecdote, because you spent obviously a lot of time, you live in the UK, but you have roots here from Poland.
Yes.
with that perspective, do you sense that women are more, let's say, prepared here for being part of, let's say, more military training, being ready? What's the concept like in the UK? Is it different? Is it based on...
Are you asking me about women being prepared for war or women being prepared to serve in the military?
I think both of those things.
Both of these things.
Curious.
I think in the UK, being a little separate island nation, the UK doesn't like to think about wars much. I don't think there's that same urgency that you're starting to feel in Poland. So from that perspective, the society is not very much concerned about wars. Having said that, I know of colleagues who have joined military training because this is something that interests them. So I know more British women who serve in the military than Polish women. So it's kind of ironic, I suppose, that, that more females are prepared for an eventuality of war, even though they don't think that war is so imminent than in Poland. Having said that, it might be changing these days. But I think it's good to always be prepared. Very much a Boy Scout attitude.
Prepared in all directions. Yeah. Let's scale back a bit. You're here in Poland for a conference, a science conference. I believe it's being opened by the First Lady of Poland. So tell us a bit, let's say, what's pulled you here, what's going to be covered there. Let's say also back to barriers, but also the barriers of maybe also what women in science are encountering, what you've learned in your own career in that direction.
Yeah, so the conference actually goes beyond science. So it's called Polka XXI wieku, the Polish women of the 21st century. And yes, it is opened by the First Lady, but then we go on to panels that address all sorts of issues related to women and girls. Yes, I'm in a panel on technology and pushing the boundaries of knowledge, but there will be some on mental health in women and young girls, on the use of tech, on investments. So it is addressing what it's like to be a woman in 2026 from a variety of angles. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's a packed program. So if you have the time to pop over to.
And if we look at also, I mean, it's women in the 21st century, but in terms of, if we look at your own field, if we're looking at research and science, is there in your mind a difference? Does, let's say, Poland promote women like that more? I mean, there's still in academia predominantly men. Do you see that now changing? What's left to make that more equitable in terms of also your own experience in that? Well,
again, compared to the UK, I think Poland has a very good maternity or parental leave policy, and the accessibility of childcare is much better, and the affordability of childcare is better, because the promotion pathway doesn't differ that much between men and women up to a point when children come. And then women are being faced with the childbearing penalty because they need to take maternity leave. They very often take time away from work to look after the children because often they can't afford to pay for childcare, or they don't have any family support in any other way. And men might not be very keen to do that, or financially it just doesn't make sense. So I think Poland is very supportive in that way, especially compared to the UK, where I think childcare is the most expensive in Europe, and it's one of the most expensive in the world. It's so all the things, again, like going into the field, traveling, going to conferences, that always will invite the question of what do you do with children? Can your partner afford to take time off from their work to look after the kids, and how often can they do that, and for what stretches of time can you do that? Or if you're a breastfeeding mother, what do you do in the field? Do you take your baby with you, or do you leave them behind somewhere, and do you then express milk and send it somehow? It's just the logistics of it. But yeah, I think structural support of institutional support for maternity leave, for parental care, for childcare in general, that is something that makes so much of a difference. And I think I say it from a female perspective, but I think it's good for both men and women to be able to rest assured that their child is in safe hands and they don't need to worry about the logistics of it. I think both parents need support here.
Okay, so we talked about various aspects, looking at, if motherhood involved, support. Let's just get one more final one about STEM. I mean, this is something that also I think Poland, especially Polish young people, are doing very well in. Do you sense, like, if you compare where you started and now where STEM is going, is enough being fostered here for young people, young women? Is that field changing? How do you see that compared to also your time in the UK and Poland?
I feel it's improving greatly here. Again, I see a few of my colleagues who have started research groups in Poland, and they seem to be doing really, really well, and that's both males and females. So I'm quite hopeful, and it seems that while the UK is facing a bit of a problem within the sector of whole higher education as such, Poland is increasingly improving. So yes, I'm quite optimistic about it.
All right, great. And I know you have an interesting conference to attend, so thanks for coming by. Joanna Bagniewska, Oxford University. Thanks.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.